Good morning.
I think we are so honored to have the distinguished mayor of Fort Wayne, Mayor Tony, here with us. And Mayor, we'd like to welcome you to our board meeting and love if you could share your remarks with us.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Governor. It's always a pleasure to come to any type of function where you are and get a chance to spend a few minutes with you and continue to learn from you as far as what's going on in the state of Indiana. So thank you again for setting some time for today as well. My primary purpose today is just to thank you. Thank you for choosing Fort Wayne to have your board meeting. I know this is a rather new adventure for you moving around the state, and we're very proud that as you did choose Fort Wayne to host one of your meetings. This particular building that you're in, we're exceptionally proud of. At one time, it was a school. It was called the Keystone Christian School. And in 2012, we decided to change its focus, and a true transformation took place. And now we have a senior facility, and again, a building that was at one time an education facility. So being able to retrofit a building to provide an entirely new type of service that is especially needed today in our communities is something we're very proud of. But I wanted to, again, just take a few minutes, Governor, and thank you for coming, and thank all of you for coming to the city of Fort Wayne and allowing us to host you for the meeting. Again, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your leadership. And we have Don Galloway here. Development, and I think our development is actually the one responsible for this transformation. Welcome, Don.
Yes, thank you. I'm Dawn Galloway with Keller Development. And I just want to thank you all also, as the mayor did, for being here. I know it's a long way to travel to Fort Wayne. I hear that all the time. But we are so grateful to have you and really feel excited to be able to showcase one of the properties here in Fort Wayne that we built. I was looking back, we had our grand opening here in 2013, so we're now 6 years old at this property. And I had an opportunity also to talk with property management staff, Beth and Tara, and it's interesting to me that this property stays leased. There are 65 units here, 1 and 2 bedrooms for seniors 55 years and older, and it's really become its own community. The residents here share in activities and potlucks once a month. They do potluck periods, so they all get to know each other a little bit better. Beth was explaining to me how well they help each other. They trade favors and that sort of thing. And we'd love to see that happening at a senior property like Riker Reserve. So we're really excited to have you here so that we can share that with you, and we'd love to tour you through afterwards if you've got some time. It's neat for me to be able to say, this is the type of development you're approving once a year in your tax credit developments, and for you to be able to get a picture in your mind of exactly what it looks like. I think it's pretty neat. So I just wanted to thank all of you for being here. A little more information before I forget. This property is not only home to 65 seniors, but it also incorporates a lot of community space within it. So more than normal. At 65 units, you need to have a lot of room for activities and things for everyone. So this room that you're sitting in now is actually a pickleball court. It's used a lot of different ways, but that's what it was built for. This was the old gym that you're sitting in, and next to us where they have all the exercise equipment was also part of the gym. So this area kind of connects the new building that was built to the school building that was existing and retrofitted into the apartments. So there are 20 apartments up front in the school, and then the remaining units are in the back of the new construction behind you. There's also a lot of outdoor recreation space at this property, including like a fenced dog park that gets used often, raised garden beds, where if you just look out the window here, you'll see are getting used pretty plentiful this year. And then just walking past, indoor and outdoor for the senior citizens that live here at Riker. So, and I know that they all enjoy those. They have a lot of service providers that come to the property actually that help them with blood pressure checks, different sort of medical things, and some insurance training, anything that they might need. The property management staff works very closely with those services to help bring them in and teach residents and help them to remain living independently in their apartments. something I usually share, and I didn't. All of our properties that we build, that we own, are named after grandchildren of the family. Keller is a family-owned business, and so Riker's actually named after my nephew. He's very proud of that. He's been here several times to get his picture taken. so yeah, you kind of know our properties by the names.
I would ask board members.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you. Appreciate it. General counsel, deputy general counsel, is there a quorum?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
And you want to share your connection to this? Come up and share with us your connection to this.
Okay, I was born in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I moved to Indianapolis 10 years ago. However, I attended the school when it was a Christian school. And I attended it back for kindergarten and for preschool. So the idea is I was here in this gym as a little. And I also lived on the north side, so I actually lived maybe a block up in Jamestown Apartments until I was in 6th grade. So yes, that's my connection.
Welcome home.
Oh, and one more thing. Also, I want to say there's my mother in the back.
Oh,
Just
she
retired
looks
from
like
the
your
Fort Wayne Police
sister.
Department.
Yeah, she
5 years of service on the police department. Thank you.
Awesome. I'd like to call to order the July 2019 meeting of the IHCDA Board of Directors. Before we start, for those that are listening and viewing at home, if we could go around and introduce ourselves, that would be helpful.
Andy Syward, I'm designee for Van Beauty, the public finance director.
Bob Wallner, I am the lead for Treasurer Mitchell.
Suzanne Crouch, Lieutenant Governor.
Jacob Stipe, Executive Director at the Indiana Housing Community Development Authority.
Mike Schotmeyer, I'm from Evansville. It's my first meeting, so if I foul up, it's because I don't know what I'm doing.
June Midkiff, board member.
Sheena Robinson, IHCDA paralegal and the board secretary.
Well, the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the June 27, 2019 board meeting. Are there any questions, additions, corrections to the minutes? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Please welcome Samantha Spurgel to discuss a recommendation regarding the lead hazard reduction demonstration grant for the city of Muncie. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Samantha Storkel. I'm the Director of Real Estate Protection at IHCDA. I'm here today to ask the board on behalf of the city of Muncie for our lead hazard reduction demonstration grant program. It rolls off the tongue so well. Back in 2018, IHCDA received a competitive award from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for $3.4 million to assist low and moderate income households with lead hazard control across the state of Indiana. To date, we have 4 sub-recipients, including the city of Fort Wayne, city of South Bend, Vanderbilt County Health Department, RDA Evansville, and then Indianapolis Community East Area Rural Incorporated. IHCDA released a request for qualifications on May 20th, 2019, seeking nonprofit organizations and local units of government to participate in this program. We received 1 application from the city of Muncie. The city of Muncie, if awarded, will be responsible for identifying units, providing what we call a lead inspection and risk assessment, then actually conducting the lead hazard control itself. IHCD also has $400,000 of a healthy one supplement, which can provide additional years to the home. City of Muncie is targeting 22 risk assessment and lead inspections, and will conduct the lead hazard control in 20 households with a target of a minimum of 7 households receiving their healthy one supplement. With that, I'm happy to take questions.
Are there any questions?
Second.
Aye.
Staff respectfully request the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve health and home supplemental funding in an aggregate amount not to exceed $35,000 to the city of Muncie as recommended by staff.
The resolution before us, is there a motion to approve that?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Samantha, but I believe you also have a recommendation for the Home Investment Partnership Program, Home Buyer Award. Oh, these are always such mouthfuls. How about that for humanity from Morgan County?
Yes, very excited. So generally, myself or our team in production will come to the board asking for request for funding for our rental program, but the home investment partnerships program grant can also be used to support construction of units for home buyers. IHCDA re-released our home buyer funding round on April 1st of this year. Very excited to kick off this new initiative. HUD for the first time in probably 10 years put out very extensive guidance last year, so IHCDA really rebuilt our program based around that guidance. I'm very excited now that we have our first application. Unlike our rental round, IHCDA's home buyer funding round is available to nonprofits and municipal government on a rolling basis with a maximum award of $500,000. Thus far, we've received one application from the Habitat for Humanity of Morgan County to help construct units from ownership in Martinsville. The application, as all of our applications, was scored by IHCDA based on the requirements and checked for completeness. And we are tracking some key performance measures, which I'll quickly go over. The first, we will be tracking the total number of home buyer units produced with our home funds. The second is the number of certified community housing and development organizations applying. And then the last are tracking our benchmarks to ensure that we are meeting all federal requirements. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, Samantha?
One question, Samantha, I noticed the amount, 74,000. I know Habitat's really efficient, but I assume that must be some gap financing. That's not going to complete the construction of the entire house.
They do have donated labor and donated materials that help offset that cost.
Great.
It's important that, the home also is affordable to a person having about 80% of the payment.
Additional questions?
You go new construction or
These are both new construction.
We're ready for the resolution.
Staff respectfully request the board approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve home funding in the form of a grant in an amount not to exceed $74,642 for Habitat for Humanity of Morgan County Incorporated as recommended by staff.
According to the resolution before us, is there any approval?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Samantha. And please welcome Jeff Gonzalez to some recommendation regarding Veterans Affairs Supportive Policy and Project-Based Voucher Initiative. Welcome.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Gonzalez. I'm the Housing First Programs Manager at IHCDA. One of the programs that I work closely with is the Veteran Affairs Supportive Housing program. The VASH program is a program that provides rental assistance and supportive services to chronically homeless veterans in the state. And over the last couple of years, one challenge that we face with this program is that many of the veterans that are receiving this rental assistance are having difficulty finding low barrier housing to lease off in. So this initiative is attempting to address some of those barriers, and we're proposing to project base a portion of our VASH award with the Northern VA, not to exceed 50 vouchers. And what we're really trying to address with this award is identifying some units that will be low barrier, having those set aside for the veterans so that once we issue them rental assistance, they'll be able to lease up in those units right away, not having a long search time, which is an issue that we've been facing with a lot of the recipients of VASH vouchers lately. And then also to be able to identify some units that are close to the VA medical centers where many of these veterans are looking to receive services at, especially in the Fort Wayne South Bend areas. We've been noticing that veterans are having longer and longer search times while looking for housing, and we're trying to address those issues and also make sure that they are geographically close to the services that they're looking to utilize. So with that, I'll take any questions.
So Jeff, make sure I understand, so there's a lot of veterans, there's affordable housing that project basically replacing those units where they're committed to taking the
Yes.
veterans into housing, so you can kind of bridge that disconnect between home service and affordable housing.
Yeah, and also that way we could require or make those awards of projects to be low barrier, maybe overlook some eviction history or other barriers that these veterans typically face.
Master services, we have services nearby, at least.
So the VA provides services, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to identify some needs that are close to the VA medical centers.
Any additional questions?
What's the duration of the voucher?
It's permanent, so as long as they need it, we see veterans graduate off the program, basically meaning that they don't need the rental subsidy anymore. The subsidy, they're responsible for paying 30% of their income towards rent, the rest of the rent.
Any additional questions? This will fill the need for totally out in the state.
No, so this is targeted towards the northern VA area. That's the area where we're going to see the longest search times for our veterans when they're looking for housing. And we have an award of 217 vouchers in that area. Currently 150 are utilized, and then we're proposing a project based on 50 of those to get closer to our total award utilized.
Jeff, maybe can you explain a little bit about competition to get FFH vouchers and why it's important that we have veterans identifying housing and getting them housed so that we can continue to be competitive and attracting new FFH vouchers to the state?
Yeah, so annually, typically around this time of year, just recently budgeted, release a notice of funding available for additional match vouchers. And we make those requests for additional awards jointly with the VA region. So to get more match funding for the state, we have to demonstrate that we're utilizing what we have and that there's a need for more. So currently, we're looking at applying for more vouchers for the northwest area of the state. And then also we're trying to increase our utilization of current vouchers that we have so that we'll demonstrate a greater need for them in the future.
What about the other parts of the state?
Yeah, so we do have awards in other parts of the state, but we're not noticing as long of search times in those areas. So we're not sure that, we don't have the data that supports that there's as much of a need to project-based those vouchers. Mostly those veterans are able to find housing through the market.
Any additional questions? Jeff, I believe we're ready for the resolution.
Staff respectfully request the board approve the following resolution. Resolved, that the board approve the initiative which involves the allocation of match project-based vouchers in the Marion VA catchment area as recommended by staff.
Resolution before us, the motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Jeff. And please welcome Matt Rayburn to the special recommendation regarding moving forward 2020. This is really exciting.
Well, thank you. I think so too. Good morning, Board. My name is Matt Rayburn. I'm the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Real Estate Development Officer for IHCDA. And as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, I'm here today to bring forward what we think is a really exciting initiative that we're looking forward to launch. So the name of this program is Moving Forward 2020, which I think really makes us feel like the future is here, moving forward 2020. But I want to take a step back and walk you through a little bit of the history of how we've got here. So as the board knows, one of the key programs that IHCDA administers is the Federal Low-Income Housing Tax Credit, which is a tool that we use to develop affordable multifamily rental housing throughout the state of Indiana. And we are required by the federal government to create a qualified allocation plan that defines how we will award those credits to developers throughout the state. So for a number of years now, IHCDA has carved out 10% of those annual credits we get for what we call the IHCDA General Set-Aside. The other 90% has to go through a competitive process where developers come in and are scored against each other, and there's usually an oversubscription rate where only about 1 out of every 3 or 4 applications can get funded. But through this general set-aside, what we have done is we hold back 10% of those credits and say that 10% doesn't go through the competitive process. Rather, that gives us discretion to say, what is a hot topic we're dealing with right now or an unmet need, and we can award those credits through a non-competitive manner to allow the developers to be a little more creative with those projects and to work with us again in a non-competitive environment. So we've used that 10% general set aside in a number of ways over the years. Years ago, when we were first launching about 11 years ago, our supportive housing initiatives around homelessness, we used that 10% to help kind of get that off the ground and get some of our initial permanent supportive housing developments funded. Then for a couple of years, we had what we called an innovation set aside, where developers could just throw any idea they had at us, and we selected what we thought were the most innovative concepts. But what we've done for the last, what will now be 5 years, is we've used that 10% set aside for a concept that we call moving forward. And moving forward has really been a way of saying we need to look at affordable housing development as part of a larger ecosystem and really look at this from a systems approach. So over the years, we have used that moving forward to tie affordable housing into such other critical issues as generational poverty, dealing with energy and transportation. Most recently, with last year's moving forward, we're working with preserving rural projects throughout the state. So we've really creatively used the moving forward program design to say, what is that challenging issue that we're dealing with? So what we're excited to do, what we're proposing this year, is to tie Moving Forward 2020, which will be our 5th year of Moving Forward, in with what we've seen as another very successful initiative that we launched about 2 years ago. And that was our work with the State Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services to provide integrated housing options for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout our state. So what we're proposing to do with Moving Forward 2020 is that the tax credit developers who are selected through this RFP will agree to work with IHCDA to develop housing that uses a model we've used for the last 2 years that we call community integration, which is where we build affordable housing where the developer agrees that 20 to 25% of the units will be reserved for households in which at least one member has an intellectual or developmental disability, so that we're serving those individuals in an independent living setting where they're integrated into the community with others. But what we're going to do that takes it a step further, really following that moving forward model of pushing ahead, is we're going to require the developers to work with subject matter experts that we bring together, and they'll be looking to implement assistive technology and smart home technology into these units. So how do we take it even further and make sure that the individuals living in these units can live autonomously and with full independence? So we know that's one challenge that we have when dealing with individuals, especially the more severe the disability is how do we make sure they're getting access to medical care or family through various technology. So we're very excited. We're not defining in the RFP exactly what that smart home technology is going to be. We're going to, again, bring together subject matter experts from across the country to work with the developers on this. But the challenge to the developers is how can we serve individuals who historically we have thought need to be in a more institutional setting, but using technology available today, how can we restore them to independence in an affordable housing setting? The other thing we're going to do here, and this was really based on feedback we heard from the development community, is they liked that concept we had, again, 6 or 7 years ago, where we said, pitch an innovative idea you had. So the second component of the Moving Forward 2020 program will be everyone has to do the intellectual disability and smart home technology, but in their RFP response, each developer will also have to tell us one other innovative thing that they are proposing. So that challenges the developer. Yes, you have to tackle the issue we're telling you to tackle, but you need to bring something else to the table that's innovative and addresses a community challenge that may be unique to the community you're proposing to serve. I won't read the rest of the memo. The rest of the memo goes through the proposed timeline for this program. The key highlights there are, with board approval, we'll be launching this initiative on August 5th. With releasing the RFP and then getting the word out to our developers. We'll be selecting developers later this year and then doing a kickoff workshop in January of 2020, where we'll bring together those subject matter experts, our partners at the Division of Disability with the state, and bringing the developers together for a few days to really challenge them to understand and embrace the technology they'll need to do this initiative. So we believe it really ties in very well to IHCDA's strategic plan and our mission around serving vulnerable populations, and that once again we'll be able to use the Moving Forward initiative to be thought leaders across the country on how we deal with this housing issue. So I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have. We are not aware, no. So that's something that I've done some research on and our friends at DDRS have as well. We're not aware of any other state housing finance agency that is actively promoting smart home technology for this population. Absolutely.
Do you have any idea what the response rate would be? I mean, this kickoff August 5th, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
is that when you would bring the developers in, or at a later date?
So yeah, so great question. The August 5th date is when we will actually release the full RFP asking for proposals, and then our developers will have about 60 days to put together their proposals. That proposal, they'll have to identify, where they want to do the development, what they're initially thinking as far as what technologies they may embrace, and then identify what that other innovation they're going to bring is going to be. Once they submit those, our timeline gives us a couple months to review the written applications, invite all the respondents in for presentations and interviews, and then we'll narrow that down to 2 final developers. And that's when that January, those 2 final developers is who we'll bring together for the workshop. So during that 60-day time period, the RFP's out, we'll be using various methods through IHCDA and working with our marketing and communications department to get the word out. DDRS, again, the Division of Disability, they're going to be helping us get the word out as well. But historically, I would say through our previous moving forward initiatives, I'd say in the last few years, we probably get about 10 to 12 developers responding that want to be a part of the moving forward initiative.
One of the things that we do with the selection of the 2 developers is create a selection committee of non-traditional housing partners who will sit with me and listen to the presentation and be part of selecting the 2 developers. So we actually look for industry leaders in these areas to come to the table and help us select who the 2 developers that we want to participate in this. The other unique thing, because it's not competitive in the traditional sense of how we normally allocate, and we have a workshop in partnership with Energy Systems Network, we provide 2 vistas, AmeriCorps vistas, who will be with these teams for the next several years as their deals come together, and the 2 teams will also become part of a cohort, and they will work together, share best practices, share things that are not working well, and IHC will be part of that process as well. So it's a different way in which we normally, outside
Absolutely,
of
yeah.
the competitive process, we can actually be more involved and provide technical assistance or be aware of challenges and address those challenges when they come up as the teams are working together on this. So this is, it does keep us up at night because it hasn't been done. We can't say this is the best practice, this is how this gets done. So we really do have to have be engaged at IHCDA and also with our partners as well. And that's what we try to do is really promote, I would say, innovation and real thought leadership around housing and services and a bigger community challenge that we're taking on.
And 10% of this, what dollar amount then are we looking at? 10% of what?
So it'll probably be, the award for each developer will probably be around 900,000 in annual credits, so a total allocation of about $9 million in credits per development.
Okay.
It'll vary, so they'll receive 2020 credits, which we'll award to them next year. It'll vary on what exactly 10% of our allocation we get from the federal government is next year, but that's normally about $1.8 million is about what our 10% is, so.
Okay.
So Matt, for benchmarking purposes, we're through regional cities doing a large project in Evansville, the Post House, which is technology-driven. It includes General Electric and all the major players. There's a similar facility in Columbus. We benchmarked off a little, but this is taking that a step further. So Scannell's a developer out of Indianapolis. It's almost finished. It's beginning to rent up. It won't be affordable. But on the technology side, if that seems to be a unique element you're looking at here, I'm sure those folks will be glad to share what they're learning and the mistakes they're finding out on that technology. But the point of it is energy savings, so that people can use these to do whatever we do in our homes, which we do a lot today already. And then it will go beyond that, include refrigeration. It's a pretty daunting project. So, and a lot of Indiana industries are involved in that. Basically, I think when you sign up, you sign to sort of be in the laboratory, and I'm sure there's some really nice legal documents on that, but so that they can, then the appliance companies can learn how to make appliances, more energy efficient at all. So Scannell, Post House, there's a lot of people involved in that. Our Economic Development Coalition has been involved in that. I think Columbus has a similar project. I can't think of the name of it, but I know we weren't the first.
Excellent.
And
Yeah, it's a really good question. So there'd be really two potential routes that they could take. So starting with Easter seals as an example, Jake and I actually just met with them last week. Some of those groups will probably bring in as the subject matter experts, where they are coming into that workshop and working with the development teams that we select to help them think really creatively and push the boundaries on both thinking about the technology, but also thinking about how do you best serve the population, because they have the expertise there as well. So some of those larger groups, we imagine where we'd really like them to be is at that higher level, supporting IHCDA as subject matter experts. But theoretically, those groups could come in as well as part of a development team requesting funds, because when a developer responds to the RFP, this is kind of another part that's unique about the Moving Forward initiative as we've structured it for the past 5 years. It's not just the developer saying, we're the developer, but you have to have 6 different team leads identified for different areas. So in this RFP, for example, I won't go through all of them, but they have to have a team lead that's focused on the technology aspect. They're going to have a team lead that's focused on supportive services for persons with intellectual disabilities, a team lead on the built environment. So they're going to be identifying in that RFP up front, here's a team we're putting together. So it's not going to be just members of the development company. They're going to be identifying local partners to do the work. So some of those organizations could come in and say, we're tying ourselves to a certain project as part of the development team. And then some of them may be higher level, working with IHCDA as subject matter experts.
Are group homes for development disabled in that criteria then, do you think? Because our Easter Seal zones, maybe in Southwest Indiana, maybe 30 of those. And I'm sure they need more technology. They're adapting it. Would that be something you see fitting in the criteria?
So I think one thing we would hope, so with this funding source, this would be a more independent living rental model. But what we would hope is that both service providers and kind of the tech groups that go through this process would then learn best practices that they could go back and implement. So if a group came through that currently operates maybe some group home type settings, and they went through this program, that they would learn things through this that they could take back and implement. But the projects that ultimately we bring to the board late next year for funding would be a more traditional independent rental housing type model where there's a carve out of units for the population.
But that's always the goal, even with group homes, is whatever category of disability they're in, is for some, if not most of the residents to achieve independent living.
Absolutely.
So that's where it would fit.
Yeah.
Group homes wouldn't fit, but the next stage would be.
Right, and what we know from some groups is there may be individuals now who are in a group home or institutional setting that, but for the affordability or but for this technology being in the housing could exit. So what could happen is once these units are brought online, there could be individuals living in group homes now that are able to move out into this, which would free up that institutional setting for individuals with a higher need or a higher severity that need to be there. So that could certainly be a model.
We hope that is a model.
Yeah.
Need that referral, take that next step, self-sufficient.
We deal with that all the time with families and friends, and all of us have those contacts, and it's very important to quality of life for part of our community. That we visited South Carolina. They've taken this to the next level, and they have industries that are focused. For example, Walgreens does a very good job of that, where independent living, jobs, and it's an enormous employment source, high productivity. But this is an important step to that process. And we visited the facility. It's been there about 6 years, an experiment. It's fascinating when you see it, just fascinating. And we need workforce, right, Suzanne? I mean, it's one we haven't tapped very well, anyway.
I think the transportation component of this is going to be really, really important, because that is one of the barriers to employment is transportation. So how do we integrate this all together? And again, that goes back to the whole systems-wide approach of how we take these on. And that's what we're trying to work. We are identifying some very challenging areas, transportation being one of them, that housing can influence. Where we put the property, the multi-different modes of transportation, walkability, car sharing, autonomous vehicles. We need to throw that out there. That's coming. And how do we think about that in terms of getting from point A to point B, from housing to opportunities for employment? So I think all of those things, these
Walgreens facility I visited was not in an urban area, it was a suburban area, so bus service, to the best of my knowledge, wasn't readily available or limited, and the facility was so large that, and we have that in Evansville with a couple of our facilities, that they actually provide their own bus service. So the employers, and I would say that 85% of the people we visited, and we spent time with them for a good part of a day, were independent living. But some could drive, but many couldn't.
Yeah. I'd love to. Yep. That'd be great.
Talked about, so we will continue to move forward and feel it would be exciting part of that. So,
Excellent.
thank you. There are no further questions.
I'll make my resolution. Okay, thank you all for the great discussion. Staff respectfully requests the board approve the following resolution. Resolved that the board approve the Moving Forward 2020 program as recommended by staff.
I'll gladly make my first motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll keep you all updated.
Please welcome Colleen Welling to discuss the 2019 individual development tax credit program applications.
I know.
Good morning. I'm Kylene Welling. I'm the Chief of Staff and Chief Operating Officer for IHCDA, and I am here to talk to you this morning about our IDA tax credit program allocations. Every year, we're authorized to allocate no more than $200,000 in state tax credits during the state fiscal year to community development corporations. The credits are sold to help those CDCs fund additional individual development accounts and also to allow them to recoup a small portion of administrative costs associated with administering those accounts and providing the match. Individual development accounts is our state's match savings program. We do match participants for every dollar they save. They're able to earn up to $3 in state match for that, and those dollars that they save are used for eligible purchases, which include a home repairs, a vehicle, higher education costs, or job training. So we released an RFP for this in May of this year to our network that administers our IDAs. You guys approved those last month. So these are folks that want to raise additional dollars to fund either additional accounts or perhaps fund them for some similar programs they administer. We received 6 applications from 6 community development corporations requesting $159,875 in those tax credits, so we were able to fulfill everyone's request. The applications were evaluated based on the same criteria we used for the IDA program, which include their experience administering IDA programs, what kind of financial literacy programs they plan to offer, number of counties served, et cetera. So, as you can see in Table A, the 6 requests are there. Habitat for Humanity of Morgan County, Pathfinder Services, Interlocal Community Action Program, Habitat for Humanity of Lafayette, La Casa, and the Indianapolis Neighborhood Housing Partnership. Do we have any?
Question, it's rare for IHCDA to have a resource that's not subscribed one-to-one or have over demand. Do you have any sense of why there's just, you have 200,000, you only got 120,000 in applications from CDCs?
Yeah, I did take a little look historically back at the last couple of years. We haven't consistently received requests for $200,000. It's typically hovered kind of in that general neighborhood. I would say, for each dollar they raise, the taxpayer is eligible for a 50-cent credit, so it's the half, credit situation there. Based on reports of what has actually been reported by these CDCs to Department of Revenue. Of the credits requested, we still have not ever seen more than, it still is under 50% of those actually being reported as sold and dollars raised. I would suspect because a lot of nonprofits like to generally fundraise, so they then can decide what they want to do with those dollars, whereas these are very restricted, that the dollars raised have to go to match new accounts, so they can't be used as additional match for existing accounts they may have opened under their regular state IDA program. And then also there is the 20% cap on admin up to the $100,000 mark of what they would raise. So we do plan to do a little more outreach. We do have a few of these, 4 of these groups I think have participated for each of the last 4 or 5 years. So we do want to reach out to them and see, they appear to be successful and interested in continuing with the program. What have they kind of seen as their secret sauce? Because the rest do fluctuate a lot, and we get a lot of folks that only participate 1 year and don't come back and request tax credits again.
Yeah, if I was a nonprofit, it seemed like to give a lot of tax credits to potential donors would be certainly benefit from this sustainable reduction. So just curious why we didn't see kind of that same demand. So thank you.
What do you mean by, you said new accounts, that's has an effect on only 50% of, we're not even at 3/4 of our total allocation. What do you mean they can only use it for new accounts?
Most of these applicants participate in the regular state-funded IDA program. So when they apply for those dollars, they have to indicate how many accounts they plan to open in that program year. So new people, they're starting into that program. So how many participants they're going to recruit and get onto a match savings plan of some sort, because the participants have to commit to save on some kind of regular basis. It doesn't have to be monthly necessarily, but they have to make those commitments. They have to make an initial deposit, and then they have to start those financial literacy courses and anything else that might be required of them. So each of these groups has already applied to administer a certain number of those. So these would be in addition to that. So for instance, I have the numbers here. So for instance, La Casa, they're one of our longest running participants. With this tax credit allocation, they'll actually be establishing 18 additional accounts. That would be in addition to whatever the awards we made to them last month, what they would be opening with those. So they have to do additional recruitment. They have to have enough staff to provide the case management for these folks. So again, this increases the number of individual development accounts that they're able to open for the year, but it could also increase their costs in some ways. Staff respectfully request the board to approve the following resolution. Resolve that the board approve allocating IDA tax credits in an aggregate amount not to exceed $159,875 to the applications as set forth in Table A as recommended by staff.
Good morning. Okay, my name is Carmen Lethig. I'm the placemaking manager here at IHCDA. Today, I will give a brief update on some of the programs that I oversee. First, I'm going to go over the Creating Places program. Okay, so Creating Places is IHCDA's funding program for placemaking projects that help activate vacant or underutilized public spaces. The program combines the concept of crowdfunding and traditional grant dollars, and that is a concept that we call crowd granting. An eligible project is vetted through Patronicity, who is our program partner for Creating Places. The project is then approved by a 3-person team at IHCDA within 72 hours. Then the project gets their project page together, and then they raise community dollars through their campaign on Patronicity's website for a chosen time frame between 30 to 60 days. If that project meets their goal, IHCDA then matches it dollar for dollar. So the next slide, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. The last bullet point is just going over some items that we capture on a sort of a back end of the Patronicity site. It's called a dashboard, where we're able to watch the metrics of the program over time. And so this was from July 8th of this year. So since July 2016, which is when we first got approval for the program, IHCDA, this board has allowed us to put $3 million total for the projects. We have asked for $1 million annually for project funding through Creating Places. A little under $3 million has actually been crowdfunded through campaigns. And then IHCDA has matched a little over $2 million for those projects. About $9 million has been leveraged. Leveraged means money that has went into the projects outside of the crowdfunding. So it will be additional dollars that went into the project that's outside of the campaign. It could be grant dollars, foundation dollars, and then we also count in-kind donations as well. So that total project investment ratio is taking the crowdfunded and leveraged and then divide it by the IHCDA granted dollars. So you'll see that we have $5.38 of private money for every $1 IHCDA invested in the projects. And this, again, is just an overview from July 8th of this year. We've had 77 total projects. The breakdown and the bullet points that you'll see under that 77 is just kind of how I keep track of the different categories of placemaking projects that we have funded. Some of the projects in that other category include things like kayak and canoe launches, a lot of different trail amenities. We had the Evansville trolley, just kind of different things that don't fall into those other sort of general placemaking type of projects. And then as of July 8th of this year, we had 6 projects that were live, undergoing a crowdfunding campaign, and 4 that were approved, getting ready to go live. These are just some pictures of some of our Creating Places projects that have completed. In the upper left, that is an alley in Tipton. Upper right is an all-inclusive playground in Wabash. Bottom left is the Idol in Indianapolis, and bottom right is the trolley in Evansville. Next, I'm going to go over the My Community, My Vision program, which is another program I oversee here. So this coming school year will be the 6th My Community, My Vision program year. The program was really created in order to address sort of the brain drain problem that we have in Indiana. And really what the goal has evolved to is, I mean, we still have that program goal, but we're trying to involve youth in their communities so that they feel like they're really integrated and have a say in their community, so that they come back and stay in their hometown and ultimately stay in Indiana. So we like to educate, empower, and engage Indiana's youth about what is community development, what does it mean to be civically engaged, what does it mean to be involved in your government and some of the public processes that happen around you. And also recently we have implemented a project development aspect into the program. So at the end of the school year, each participating group will receive a youth-led community vision plan that the youth and some other project partners, which I'll get into in a minute, have created. And they also receive $5,000 to implement that project in their community. This slide shows the various partners who are involved in the program. IHCDA is the program creator and funder. There are 5 student groups from Indiana communities, and each group has an adult leader who is the main point of contact. Each high school group is paired with an IUPUI School of Public and Environmental Affairs graduate student, and then the local government is also expected to be a partner in some sort of level, and those are the various ways that the local government can be involved with the community group, or with the high school group, I'm sorry. This slide kind of talks about the process of the program. Like I said, it is a school year program. And at this point in time, we're kind of expecting the students to be exploring their vision of their community, and then they apply to the program via an essay, a 5-page essay, and then some other documents that they're required to submit. Then we will choose the high school groups that will participate in the program. And then from September to April is when the bulk of the work happens. That's when the graduate student is working with the student groups throughout the school year. We expect the student groups to also be meeting a few hours a week on their own in order to be thinking about their community and what they want that vision plan and that project to look like. There are a few statewide meetings where the community, where all the My Community, My Vision groups get together. And then we also would really like them, and most of the groups do this, we'll have public meetings with the community members. Many of our groups have presented in front of city or county, council meetings in order to get projects approved or just to update them on the work that they're doing in the community so that the local government officials are aware of what is happening and hopefully, are taking the plans into consideration into other planning efforts in their community. In April, they have a presentation of their final plans to other My Community, My Vision groups, IHCDA staff, elected officials. This is sort of the celebratory meeting where everybody shows off all the work that they've been doing throughout the school year. And then they also tell us about what their project is that they have chosen and that they will begin implementing throughout the summer and by the fall of that same year. This slide shows all the different groups that have participated in the program in the past 5 years. So we've had a pretty good array of locations throughout the state in different sized communities. This is just a quick slide to show you what this upcoming program year will look like. I've had 2 webinars so far. I just had one through AIM on Tuesday and had a pretty decent sized group show up, so I'm excited, and new communities. So applications will be due in September, and then the rest of the remaining dates are what I talked about, the bulk of the school year where they're working on their program, project, and community vision plans. And then these are some other initiatives that I'm working on under the Placemaking Indiana umbrella. I have a placemaking council that I work with, and we continue to meet and work on goals for advocating placemaking as a community development tool throughout the state in different types of organizations. I'm partnering with Michigan State University and Purdue University Extensions to create placemaking trainings to hopefully roll out next year, available to local governments and nonprofits. Continue to produce the Placemaking Indiana monthly newsletter, and with that council, we're developing a resource center where we'll have case studies, project and community contacts so that we can connect communities to other communities who have done placemaking projects and other funding opportunities, etc. Happy to take any questions. All right, thank you.
Good program.
Yep, that's right. Yep. So this is the 3rd year that we've had funding to actually implement a project. So it's been really interesting and fun to see the students come up with these different kinds of ideas. Yeah, I think we always see a little bit more excitement when there's some money tied to the plan. And I think that this is a unique program because we're able to show the planning side and then the implementation side to show like all the work that has to go in on the front end, but then, you're not done. There's still a lot of work that has to be done in order to make that project a reality. So it's been really fun to kind of switch the focus a little bit and give the students, I think they get really excited that they'll be able to see something physical in their community that's come out of that planning process.
Can you share some of the high schools that just graduated, K-12 and their
Yeah, sure. I'm going to have to go to my notes so I can remember exactly. Yeah, so this past year was Huntingburg, Warsaw. Yeah, so Warsaw is doing a public mural that is sort of near the alley where they use the Creating Places program. I think it's just around the corner. So they're going to do a public mural on a building that faces the courthouse, I believe. North Putnam School Corporation, they are doing a combination of community gardens and a greenhouse, and that's what they're going to use our funds for. But then they're also going to be carrying on that project to another phase and making it more of a gathering space for high school students. They'd like to have a little cafe there eventually. Let's see, Union County High School, they are doing beautification efforts in, totally forgetting the name of the community that they're doing that in. So they're doing some streetscape elements in order to have places to be able to sit in their downtown area. Batesville Mayor's Youth Council is also doing a public mural, and they're actually using the same artist that did a public mural in Greensburg with the Creating Places program. And Huntingburg's Mayor's Youth Council is using using our funds for a portion of a park that was part of their Stellar Community Plan. So this park is a very large park, and we are funding a small part for, it's a multifunction part of the park where they can do basketball and other kinds of sport things.
Pickleball.
And then actually from last year, we had a Blue Way map that was created for canoe and kayaking. We had a movie night equipment that was bought so they could do movies in the park and different parks in their community. That was in LaPorte. And then we had a mural for Purdue Polytech, and Irvington did they worked to do small business connections with the high school students and connecting them to small businesses there in the Irvington corridor for possible job shadowing type of situations. And they worked with IMPD to do some SEPTED improvements around their school for those that walked and rode the public bus to get to and from school.
It's Union City.
Yeah, that's Union City.
Union's fully in the county. You're in my turf now.
So this was Union County, and I believe that
Liberty.
Yes, Liberty, thank you so much. Yeah, so Union County, it's a consolidated school corporation, so they decided to use the funds on sort of the nearest town, I believe, is what the situation was. That is part of the vetting process that Patronity talks to them about, especially when you're talking about projects like a splash pad, for example. We always want to make sure that they have a budget set aside in order to maintain these projects, yes. Thank you.
Try not to disappoint. First, I just want to welcome Mike to the board. Thank you for joining our board. Working with you and having you on board. I want to mention Tuesday, IHCDA in Indiana Bond Lake are partners in the Indiana Opportunity Investment Consortium, which promotes Indiana's opportunity zones. And we were fortunate to have a Opportunity Zone Summit where we invited elected officials and economic development officials, along with some community leaders, to promote and to hear some best practices and pair investors that are looking to invest in opportunity zones together. So it was a day-long event. attract a special type of investment for community or economic development into those underserved areas. So really proud of the work that we have done and the partnership that we have created both in the public sector and the private sector with the consortium. But the summit really was, I thought it was highly successful. We were able to bring in our keynote speaker was Scott Turner, who's the executive director of the White House Opportunity and Reinvestment Council. He came in and he spent not only Tuesday but also Wednesday in Indiana listening and hearing more about Indiana's opportunity zones and the consortium that we pulled together, and was also part of the Opportunity Zone Summit as well. So hats off, and I have to recognize Samantha Spurgel, because without her, she's just here, she is over there, this wouldn't have happened. She's been tirelessly effort into organizing and all the logistics and bringing in all the speakers and coordinating everything with the consortium. But thank you, Sam, for everything that you did. It was, again, it wouldn't have been successful without your leadership. So anyway, so just really proud of the work that we're doing there with that and with everybody else that we have part of the consortium. So the next.
We're the 756 census tract. We're like, they all represented people from their communities and areas.
I don't know if we have all 156 represented. We definitely did the outreach and working with AIM to do the outreach as well, and also different economic development chambers to invite folks. But I think we had, it was over 230. I don't think we had every zone represented.
I'm curious to see.
Yeah.
What that is.
We are working on a survey that's going to go out. Maybe that could be a question we could ask. What zone were you representing, or zones? But we were able to bring in investors who were looking to invest into the opportunity zones. We had several panels, discussions on that. So,
And isn't Indiana kind of in the lead on our opportunity association one?
I would say we're in the lead as terms of the consortium that we created, the public-private partnership. The consortium also has a website where developments can submit their development, and behind the investors can take a look at those. So it's a hearing. Also, the opportunity zones can post their prospectus, which is the assets and the types of developments that they're looking for. So that piece is there as well. But that website, the consortium, really has stood out nationally as a model for states and local government and private sector to work together. How do you attract private investment, but also the right types of investment as well?
They have housing in this last
The first opportunity fund that we're aware of that closed in our state was a housing, was affordable housing. So affordable housing is one natural fit for an opportunity fund investment. Yes. But also there's commercial or economic development, and also small business on the other types of investment opportunities that you can make for an opportunity fund. But housing is a multifamily housing. Is an area where it's a natural fit. And in the QAP, the qualified allocation plan that we allocate to credits, that is a scoring category. They can leverage opportunity fund dollars. We recognize that in an application. So that was new this year that we implemented.
Jacob, in Southwest Indiana, we've been benchmarking off over the Rhine in Cincinnati. Is that a good benchmark in your opinion? Given its proximity to particularly those of us in southern Indiana.
I would say that. I would also look at Louisville. Louisville was one of a few cities that received a grant to put together a very comprehensive prospectus and to specifically attract opportunity fund investment.
Okay.
Their prospectus and their website is very thorough. I think they do a really nice job with that. And that was one of the areas where we're trying to promote our smaller, all of our communities to really think about what are your assets, what types of investment are you looking for, and what are those projects that complement that, and making sure that you get the right type of investment. I think Louisville is one of the communities. Alabama, Birmingham is another community, another city. City of South Bend, Indiana was one of the
Yeah,
recipients of
forgot
that
about
as well. Interesting enough, the city of Seymour has been is, these investors can go anywhere in the country. And so we have to stand out, our communities have to stand out from everyone else. There's over 9,000 opportunity zones across the state, across the country, and we only have 156 of them. So a prospectus and identifying why you should invest in these communities is really, really important. That message for investors to understand that. This is an initiative, but it is not a program. It's an investment opportunity. And so I think it is a change, a mindset of change for our community leaders to think about how you attract private capital rather than looking always for grants or tax credits. This is a different mindset. But definitely programs like the tax credit programs they do have gaps, and these opportunity funds can fill those gaps. And so when you start to layer on some of the like market tax credit, the low-income housing tax credit, the Dino credit in our state, those are really great tools, especially they become very powerful when you include the opportunity fund with them. So.
NPR ran a story, I don't know if you caught it, within the last week on these funds nationally. Tenor of the story was that they're being abused on the East Coast, but the point of it that I heard from a Hoosier standpoint is we better jump in and take advantage of it because it's enormous. Again, we're a donor state when it involves federal programs. We need to stop being a donor state. We need to receive more of the funds that come through Washington. So,
yeah, we're the capital gains in countries in the San Jose area,
right.
The Bay area in California, and New York. And so investors will naturally gravitate to the coast. We got to get them to figure out and understand why it's important and the opportunities that are presented here in our state to invest in the types of projects that we're looking for that will lift up our underserved, some of our low-income neighborhoods.
So in Gap, we rehabilitated the old brewery in Evansville, which is now a high-tech industry there, high wage, and that was done. The gap on that was Dino. So these are important for our communities. So.
I think it's really been a great, one of the things that hasn't been told, at least in our state, that we could continue to do a better job of is the partnerships that we're seeing. IHCDA, Indiana Economic Development Corporation, Indiana Office of Community Rural Affairs, Indiana Bond Bank. That's the state side. But then we think about what's going on the private side with the financial institutions. Fifth Third Bank made a significant contribution to create the website and support the infrastructure for the consortium. Then the investors and the technical assistance in partnership with LISC, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, that is also providing technical assistance to many communities and developers and not-for-profits. That network, that infrastructure, that backbone that we've created should be held up, and investors should look at that as we're serious about this in many different ways. I don't know, Mark, if you have anything you want to add to it as a partner with consortium or not?
I think you really know it.
Okay. Just real quick on a couple other things here. We have a couple of workforce housing initiatives, pilots that we've launched. Modular workforce housing piece, which we're looking to identify two not-for-profits to develop home ownership opportunities using the product of modular housing, using our blight elimination lots. We were a little overwhelmed with the response that we got on that. Caught us off guard. We weren't flat-footed. We were ready, but we were wanting to take it to this month's board meeting, but we needed a little bit more time to scrub those applications that we received, because we received 10 of them. We received them from Marion, Boonville, Evansville, Elkhart, Terre Haute, Elwood, Richmond, Kokomo, East Chicago, and Fort Wayne. So we had to take a time out and we need a little bit more time to thoroughly review those applications and to ask for some additional questions. So we weren't able to get it to this board meeting. Our plan is to get those two recommendations to you at the August board meeting. So I just wanted to give the board a heads up on that. So the Anchor Employer Demonstration Program that we're looking to partner with 4 anchor employers to create workforce housing. Those applications are due to us on Monday, July 29th, so we're really excited to see what type of anchor employers across our state are interested in partnering with IHCDA to invest in creating workforce housing in 4 that piece is coming, and I'll give you an update on who we received application from then. We're probably looking at a September board meeting before we would make any kind of recommendation with those employers.
Yeah, the automotive plants, so you said major employers, so I assume Subaru, Toyota, Honda are involved in this?
Well, we've defined anchor employers as the top 10 employers per county, so with the exception of being a local unit of government or a government entity. So they would be eligible if, for example, if Subaru was in the top 10 of either Tippecanoe County or Putnam County.
That's number one.
So they would be eligible. So yeah, we're looking at the top 10 to be eligible.
I know, working with Toyota for 20 years, it's a big issue.
Yep.
So I'm sure it is at Subaru and Honda as well, and GM up here, so.
We've done quite a bit of outreach into trying to make those employers aware of the opportunity. And we've actually had some really good questions and some good responses from that already. So really interesting to see what we get. And we've already got a couple applications now, so it'll be interesting to see what we get on Monday.
I hope someone will reach out to Gibson County, because I know they've worked very hard on that issue, so.
Just real quick, we have a couple of subcommittees with the board, and I know we're trying to get some meetings scheduled within the next week or two. Shane, thank you for your work. We have an audit committee meeting that we need to get scheduled on our calendars, and then also our single-family homeownership loan servicing. IHCDA is looking to go out with an RFP on our loan servicing, thanks to Rich and his team on the single-family department. Before we take that to the board, we want to run this by the committee, make sure that we have done all of our due diligence before we issue any kind of RFP with approval from the board. So we do need to have our single-family loan servicing meeting coming up here in the first week, right, next 2 weeks. So just a heads up on that. So speaking of August board meeting, that is going to be in Evansville. So Mike will come down to see you. So thanks for driving up here. Now we're going to drive down to see you. That'll be August 22nd at Jacobs Village. That'll be at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And we'll get you more information on location where Jacobs Village is located, but it's on Jacobs Village Drive. One interesting piece of that, and I want the board to be aware of it, there is a Memorial CDC, Memorial Community Development Corporation, is having their 25th anniversary luncheon, and that starts at 11:30. They've invited the board, the governor, to be there. We have, IHCDA has sponsored a table, so if any of the board members are interested and are able to stick around for Memorial CDC's annual luncheon, you're more than welcome to join us at our table. And if you'd like to stay, just let us know. We make sure we can reserve the space for you at that event. So that will also, so that's all happening on August 22nd. And that is my update.
Good job.
Who's ready for the business to come before the board? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.